My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
you can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for it is worth
it.
Just focus on the next step.
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing something.
That is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing anything
It's a challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think
could.
there's a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these days,
love working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about.
hindsight,
I've also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
It
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
To say this is a pleasure is probably an understatement. You know, we really appreciate you stepping up to support kids and us to get the message about careers and life after school, and I think it's really important. There are a number of things that struck me when we were sort of exposed to people you were coming on, because, of course, we shouted it out and we said, Dai's coming on board. Firstly, there was this unanimous joy and excitement from a huge cross-section of people, from little kids to grandparents. I don't know whether you realise this, but it speaks volumes to your popularity and your reach. So there was that. And then secondly, it was the genuine affection expressed for you, which really hit me. It was sort of like a real overwhelming love. And I gather you would imagine you'd see that on a daily basis. If you wander down the mall, there's a lot of faces that light up. So it was really special. And I'm interested in that word popularity and whether it was something you set out to achieve or simply a consequence of the way you've conducted yourself. And we'll talk about that later. It's a privilege for Grace and I, as I mentioned, to get to listen. For students, parents, teachers, and aspiring entertainers, your insight today into what you've done, but also how you've done it and why, will give a deep understanding of what it takes to be successful in the world of entertainment. We hope these aspiring students can see parts of themselves in you and take away messages that provide a clearer and more confident future. You went to Wellington College and then studied theatre and film at Victoria University. And I must have a shout out to Victoria University because that's where I went to. How these formative years must have supported you. And I'm really interested to explore those early years. Subsequently, you forged a career that has been widely acclaimed. For those that don't know, and I got a bit of a shock to be honest, Best New Face on TV Pulp Comedy 1999, Billy T Award 2002, the Fred Award 2007 and 15, which is the highest honour at the New Zealand International Comedy Festival. You've performed in comedy in Tokyo Comedy Store, in Melbourne, Britain, Montreal, to name a few. TV roles like The Project, many people will be familiar with you, and most famously 7 Days, of course, that we all sit and crack up at you on. You've recorded DVDs of your journey with health as well as written books. You're winner of Best Male Comedian, Best TV Personality, Best MC, winner of the Funniest Person on TV. It's unbelievable the accolades you've received. But it culminated with all the love I mentioned earlier and those with the 2025 King's Birthday Honours List, where you became an officer of the New Zealand Order of Merit for services to entertainment and charitable fundraising. And not to be forgotten amongst all this success, your wife and 2 children. And I can't go any further without mentioning your support of your beloved New Zealand Warriors. In their darkest days and their best, your internal optimism is to be admired, and hence I'm wearing the Warriors shirt today to respect that. I always say, who was this for? There's no doubt today it'll be for your fans who cannot get enough of your humour, wisdom and storytelling. There will be students and aspiring entertainers, particularly comedians, but also anyone interested in theatre and TV. Parents who have a child that's funny, quick-witted, overly confident, possibly annoying, and not suited to the pamphleted careers they'll often be presented. It will provide them with an alternative pathway and harness these talents. It might also give the parents hope. It will also resonate with those who are struggling and face adversity, because although we focus on the futures of students, this can only be done when they're mindful, happy and healthy. And we'll talk about that a bit later. On behalf of everyone, thank you for being on the guest speaker. As a teacher, I can't wait to hear what sort of kids you were in a class because, funnily enough, I think you're probably a nightmare, but you may not have been. So Wellington College, I was up the road at Otaki College. I don't know, well, you'd know Otaki growing up down there. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, mate. So please, Dai, tell us about you at school and how you found it and what resonated there for you.
Well, I was I mean, to sort of jump right back to being 5 years old and going to my first dip into primary school, I can actually remember making a group of people laugh. I can't remember what I said, but I can remember making a group of people laugh and the feeling that gave me. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to make people laugh as a living. And I was the class clown. I hate that term, the class clown, to be honest, because it carries with it a lot of negative connotations. I was respectful of teachers. I enjoyed school, but I had a laugh with my teachers. And I think people think of the class clown or the kid that's funny. They're always disrupting class. We need to shut them down, yada, yada, yada. But now we've moved on a little bit further. We've realized actually people who do disrupt the class and so forth, they might have other needs that aren't being addressed. They might not suit the structure of how teaching's done. So I think putting sort of those kids in the same group as kids who just like cracking a joke or have good timing is a bad thing. And I was a class clown. I brought humor to things. And I remember the teachers brought humor to learning. And humor really helps learning because I still remember those teachers. I still remember those classes. And so at school, I was very lucky because I fell into two groups. I was sporting, like I played rep rugby, rep cricket, and I was very artistic. We had a little drama club and so forth. So I sort of had that foot in both camps, and that meant I had a very diverse friend group as well. And yeah, I was just a kid who I enjoyed going to school. Sure, there were obviously days I didn't want to go, but I look back on my schooling as a positive experience, not necessarily that I learned a lot of specific skills that relate to being a comedian. However, something my dad always said to me when I was younger, and he was from 4 boys in the war generation, and he was the only person in his family who went to university. And he said, look, I want you to finish school. I want you to go to university, because education is finding out what you don't know. And that stuck with me, because when I then went to university, I was like, wow, there are all these, what is this, anthropology? There are all these disciplines, and it just blew my mind. And even though I took courses in ones I was interested, but even though I didn't do them all, it broadened my mind to the scope of what is out there. And it didn't make me stay in this little channel. It sort of, and as a comedian, you need to be curious to be a comedian, because I know a very small amount about a lot. So there's that thing of, I'm very curious. I like to learn. And then when you're learning about something you don't know about, you look at the weirdness of it or the strange things. So it's easier to sort of not poke fun, but to make jokes around it. But to sum it up, yeah, I wasn't an amazing student. I was your sort of C plus B student. I enjoyed school, had good friends. I had positive relationships with most of my teachers. I never got in that much trouble. I was at Wellington College. I was your school council president. So I ran a campaign to get kids to vote for me, because when I was young, I had one eyebrow, right? So through years of plucking, it became 2 separate individuals, but I have one eyebrow. So everyone called me Diebrow at school. And so my slogan was "Dye brows to serve you." And that was funny enough to get me elected. And then in that final year of school, being a school council president, I had a lot more to do with the teachers. And that sort of, I suppose, meeting them more on a personal level was a good thing, because it made me realize then, which is something I still need to realize today, is people are just people, whether it's a police officer, a firefighter, a teacher, they are just people. So you don't need to be scared of people. You can approach people. And I think a lot of kids need to learn that, of realizing you can approach anyone and chat to them, and they're a person, just like you're a person. And if you bring a smile and some respect, then you're off to a good start.
It's interesting, as I pick up there, Dai, you said very early on you have a diverse friend group, which you saw as a real positive. And we had a filmmaker on, and he found that really important, because when you, like you said, try and discuss characters or find humour, if you've only got a narrow-sighted friend group without that diversity, and it's a little bit like if you go to a very, very private school, maybe it narrows it down. I can imagine at Wellington College, it was a lot like Otaki College. You had everything from every diversity, and it adds, I don't know, it adds something to your life. So I picked up on that. The class clown interests me because I agree with you. I had Ben Boyce when he was younger.
Oh, wow.
And so I know Ben is, and I remember talking to his mum. And of course, I was saying, the guy's a genius. He's going to get in trouble at school. He's going to be annoying. But I think the class clown doesn't relate to a career, but they're wrong. If you had been the world's best sprinter, of course, they would have loved, because they would have seen a career path. But I absolutely agree. There are kids there that are described in awful ways that have incredible talents. So I hope they're sitting here listening to you going, well, go me.
And also, I just, if I can jump in there, something for kids is realizing that if you don't fit, like if you're not smashing it out of the park with all your subjects and so forth, but you've got a great friend group, but you can communicate well, but you've got a good relationship with your teacher, that is something you can't learn. And when you get to work, the work stage of life, people want to work with people who have good people skills. And if you've got good people skills and you've got a good friend group, once you get your foot in the door, you're in there, because that's something you can't teach. So there are these intangibles that kids have, and don't be sort of, I suppose, put back because, oh, well, I'm not perfect at all these different subjects. You might have a skill that can't be marked, but there you go. It's going to serve you so well in later life.
As a father, do you find yourself going, but try harder at school?
I was just thinking now, I recently had the parent-teacher meeting with my son, who's at intermediate, and that is what came through. My son's similar to me. He's very smart, but he's not academically your A+++. But the teacher is, look, he's got an amazing teacher. He's smart. He's got great people skills. He can communicate. He works hard. And to me, actually, the process is more important than the mark. And it's the same for me with comedy. The process is more important than getting an award or whatever. If my son is worked his behind off and concentrated and so forth, but he gets a low mark on something, that's okay by me, because he worked hard, and then he will learn from that, and that just might not have been his thing. To me, that's almost more important than someone who just breezes through and chucks a few things down and flukes a multi-choice or something. So yeah, I instill that with my kids. I have no idea what they're going to be when they grow up, but no, they're both very social kids, so that sort of makes it easy.
it doesn't relate, but I just thought of it, Dai. And so I'm from Cambridge. Ludlam was one of my many great teachers. But what you were saying there about the people skills is both my parents had businesses. And I remember having from a young age to answer the phone, and you couldn't just be like, hi. You had to be like, hello, Grace speaking, in case it was business related, right? And so when you were saying how you learn to talk to teachers, or you learn just to be a personable, good sort who can speak to adults and kids and whatever it may be, that's one of those soft skills, like you said, that can't be taught, but through exposure, I feel like I got, being the product of parents who had businesses, was you got to be on. You can't act shy in front of adults because it could be a client, it could be a work partner, it could be a something. And so it's all those ones that now as an adult, I recognize, oh, that actually helped. I can identify it as that, but why do you think it could just be you, but do you think there was anything that when you were in that, other than making people laugh, like something that helped you build that confidence in that space?
I was only child. Well, I am an only child still. And I think that actually helped me in a way, because I was out a lot. My father was an actor. My mum was a judge, but she also worked in the theatre as well. So I was raised sort of in the theatre around very extroverted people, and I just had to talk to adults, and as you say, there was no sort of way around it, and it did come naturally to me. And it's some people aren't that way inclined, and I think I've noticed now. My wife's an art teacher at our local primary school. I've noticed now COVID really had an effect on people, and that can't be, especially some children, and that can't be mitigated. The people are still sort of recovering from that in terms of socializing.
Yeah.
And whereas my children were sort of gagging to get out and chat to people and so forth, and there is shyness, but you never know where kids are going to learn something from. For instance, my son's rugby coach, who he's had for the last 4 years, he is a firefighter, yet he's a very empathetic person. And there's a lot of kids in my son's rugby team who are very shy, or come from cultures where you don't really look people in the eye. You sort of keep your head down in that. And watching him teach these skills of, hey, don't be afraid, come up, shake my hand, you can look me in the eye, right? You're going to do the team speech this week. Take a minute, look at all the boys in the eye, then start speaking. It is a skill that can be learned. And the best thing about it is, the more you do it, the better you get, regardless. It's not something you can fail at. It's sort of, once you realize that most people are happy to sit there and listen to you, they're not going to rip into you or anything. Then you get more confidence. You do it again. It gets easier.
So can I take you back? So Dai, you turned up at Victoria to do your theatre degree. Was there, when you left school, did you have a career in mind, or was it, I'll get a degree and I'll see where it leads? And then what was that study like? Because I haven't met someone yet that's done a theatre degree. Yeah.
So, university initially was to buy me a bit more time, to be honest, to figure out what was going to happen. There was never any not going to university for me. I just, as I mentioned, I enjoyed school, so it was a natural progression. A lot of my friends were going to Victoria University, so I knew I'd have a crew of people there. I didn't do just theatre and film. I also sort of had a double major in Eastern religion as well, because since I was young, I went to Japan with my father quite regularly, and I learned Zen Buddhism over there as a young kid, and And that really resonated with me. And then from my 20s onwards, I sort of got on the beers and told some jokes. And then recently I've sort of come back to that. And so I went to Victoria University. I always wanted to do theatre and film. One of the lecturers there was a family friend. So I sort of felt very welcomed into that space. And I wanted to do it because it was a way of immediately connecting with like-minded people, with people who were into the arts, people who like laughing, people who like performing. And I've always had a feeling that things would work out. And if I just said yes to things and grab those opportunities, because when you're moving into the performing space, opportunities are scary because you have to get up in front of people. You have to be very vulnerable. I found it easy to make people laugh, yet theatre and film was mainly about serious plays. So I had to challenge myself, and it quickly turned out that I was a comedian. I was doing one role that was a famous playwright, Brecht. He had this character called Baal, who was a horrendous human being, doing very inappropriate things to people. And in one scene where I had to do something very inappropriate to this woman who I'm 5'5.5", she was 6 foot and is now a police officer. As I was trying to be very inappropriate, the whole audience is just laughing. And afterwards, the lecturer goes, "Look, I know you weren't trying to take the piss deliberately here, but we're a comedian, mate. We're a comedian." And it was the springboard from theatre and film was all the universities would have a comedy competition once a year in a different city. This particular year, it was in Auckland, and we all sort of a crew of us all rolled up there and did theatre sports. A friend of mine, Anna Kennedy, and we were a double act stand-up called Diana, and it was hosted by the late, great Ewan Gilmore, and he said, "You guys are good stand-ups. Keep doing it." And that was the same year that the comedy, the first full-time comedy club in Auckland, the Classic Comedy Bar, opened. And from then on, I was just, this is what I want to do. I don't know why, because there was no money in it. You know, you get paid $20, which went slightly further back then, but not much. And I then went back and I finished my degree. And after that, I was just, comedy's where it's at. I will work. I worked in bars. I worked in the theatre to sort of have enough money to then do little gigs and so forth. And then the graph turned from earning money from comedy was more than I was earning from the bars, and I kept going at it. But it was all about work, and my parents instilled a very good work ethic in me. I think I was blessed by the fact that my father was an actor, so I saw a career path that was different, yet I got to witness behind the scenes exactly how hard he worked. It wasn't all show up, do a show, then you're schmoozing around the front bar, chatting to people and having a drink. The hours he had put into it, his dedication. So I realized that if I wanted to succeed in comedy, I had to work. And comedy is work. If you want to be good at anything, it is work. And I was blessed that what I loved aligned with work. So, sure, 30% of it is hard. Being a comedian means doing GST returns. It's not just writing jokes. So there are parts that I don't enjoy, but I work at it because doing those parts I don't enjoy means I get to go out on stage and share laughter and love with so many people.
Because I was going to raise, you answered it, I think, when you mentioned Dad was an actor, because I was going to ask, was there any stigma for Mum and Dad about doing even the theatre degree? Because some parents, and I'd encourage them not to, if their child said that, they said, no, you're going to do accounting or law or something else. So you obviously didn't have that issue with persuading Mum and Dad, one, for that degree, two, for comedy. They were all for it.
So, Mum probably would have been pretty keen for me to be a lawyer, to be honest. There's quite comedians and lawyers are very close. They both enjoy the sound of their own voice and standing up and talking rubbish. So Mum, I actually did one paper of law. I did do legal systems. I sort of did, as I was saying, I was curious. I did quite a handful of papers that never actually ended up in my degree. Anthropology, art history, legal systems. And I'd encourage people to do that because you actually don't know what's going to tickle your fancy, what's going to get you excited, especially if you don't have a passion for something directly. But no, I was blessed that my parents had trust in me. They set a timeline. Like, I still went through hard times where I needed the support of my parents, whether it be short-term financially, whether it be dossing down at home for a little bit. But they said, look, go for it in comedy, but set yourself a deadline. If you're not making enough to pay your rent in 3 years' time, really have a look at something else. So they they gave me some boundaries there. And something you said there, how parents might say, oh, don't go into theatre and film, don't go into that. There's no money in that. If you want to have a relationship with your kids when they're older, showing some support when they're making decisions for themselves, and we're talking at an age where they're old enough to make decisions for themselves, like at that 17, 18, support them. Because sure, you could give them guidance and help through your own experience. But if you just start saying straight, no, I want you to do this, they are their own human being who is living their own life. You don't own your children. You are there to create a space where your children are loved, where your children are safe, where your children, when they're grown up, have some shelter. You're there doing that, giving them love, making them feel safe. That's planting the seeds for them to succeed as a human. And succeeding as a human, to me, is more important than getting that job that gets you the extra 20 grand a year but you hate. We are on this beautiful planet to be the best humans we can be. And, we sort of haven't touched on it, but I've been dealing with it. Cancer diagnosis, and something that really just popped into my head one day was like, I don't care if my kids want to sit on a beach and look at trees, if that is what brings them pure happiness, and live a frugal life looking at trees, but they had the happiest heart in the world. I don't care, because that is what is important. And I think people often conflate that with, flag school, drop out. No, I will encourage my kids to complete school. I'll encourage them to go to university. I won't force them, but I will encourage them because I know the depth of what knowledge and curiosity can bring. But at the end of the day, we want more good humans on this planet. And when people are happy and they have been given love so they can love themselves, we create better humans, we create a better society, we create a better planet. So I just went on a bit of a rant there, but I'm all about positivity and supporting your kids, because I think I have witnessed a lot of parents who, not from my friends, but through friends who had parents who drove them too hard, who yelled at them when they played cricket because they didn't score enough runs, who they hate their parents and they don't visit their parents, and they don't. That to me is a nightmare as a father.
Yeah. Now, it's funny you said about going on a rant, but I remind myself of being in Philosophy 101 at Victoria University and actually discussing theory like what you're talking about there. It's really liberating. Can I ask, when did you feel, and it's not that time where mum and dad said, you've got to make a call at some point, because that call might have been further down in terms of quality. When did you feel you were good? Was it when you won an award, or was it a point in your career where 4,000 people turned up to listen to you, or a broadcast you did? Do you have a time where you suddenly thought, shit, I'm okay here?
You know, I actually don't reckon I thought that I was good until maybe 3 years ago. Like when I was 45, I was always nervous. I used to throw up before shows for 5 or 6 years just through nerves. I was a sort of people pleaser. I was confident externally, but not confident internally. I would always worry, was my set long enough? Was it funny enough? I had all this going on, but underneath that, I did have confidence, obviously, because I kept going. And as a comedian, when you're on stage, people are laughing at something that you've sort of crafted that day, you've written or you've worked out over the last couple of shows. It just, for me, gives me this swelling feeling. And if this makes any sense, I knew while I was on stage that I was good, but then when I came off stage, that's when, all the doubters in the head come in. That's when, were they really laughing? And was I imagining how good that was? But then I had the confirmation of my peers, because friends would book shows on, they'd want to book me. As you're mentioning with those awards, I've always felt very shy around awards, even though I've been blessed to have a few. And bringing it back to Vic, I actually got a distinguished alumni this year, and I had to go back there to Victoria, and they had this wonderful ceremony in the marae there. By the way, Victoria University has the only marae with underfloor heating, which is very Wellington. And it was myself and 4 others, and I felt very inadequate because we've got a guy there he negotiates the end of wars. Like, he negotiated the Serb-Croat war. He had just been in the Republic of Congo. And so I'm sort of sitting there with wide eyes listening to him being interviewed. And then I got interviewed. And then afterwards he was chatting to me, and he was saying, no, you had so many insights and intelligent takes on things that you would never get coming through my path. So, because it's easy to think as a comedian, I just get up on stage and talk rubbish. But it was that realizing, actually, no, I've created an honest career where I have used my intelligence. I have unique takes on things. And it's moments like that that still give me confidence and remind me, oh no, you're actually pretty good at this.
Can I ask Dai, who is behind Dai? Like when we asked someone like Cam Roygard, we had on as an All Black, and he has physios and he has managers. I mean, obviously to find you, we had to reach out to a manager. You have a manager who obviously answers emails or something or promotes you. Who else is behind Dai Henwood?
Amazing, strong woman. And that has been the answer from the day I was born. So I've got my manager, who's my best friend, Richard Carrington. I have an agent, Imogen Johnson. She sort of does TV and all that carry on. But in terms of who's really behind Dai Henwood, I mentioned I was an only child. My father passed in 2019. I have an amazing connection with my mother. She is an amazingly strong, driven woman. She was the second female judge in New Zealand. She was very young when she became a judge. And as a young, good-looking woman, we're talking a time where that was pretty bloody hard. There was a lot of sexism. There was, and sexism and includes all sorts of other horrific things that can go on in that situation. And my mum stood strong, and she is such a powerful and wonderful person. She has always supported me. I have an amazing wife who is so kind and caring and supportive. And I didn't actually discover who I really was until I met my wife. Like she was the first partner who I'd been with who really let me be myself and discover myself. And I wouldn't be where I am today without her. The comedy festival has always been run by amazing women like Kylie Aitchison, Lauren Whitney. So I've had the benefit of having a lot of very wonderful, strong, driven women in my life. And as the father of a daughter, that makes me happy as well, because I just have this innate respect for women. And as the father of a son as well, who is growing up, there are so many issues to navigate as a man and what it means to be a man. So I feel I've been raised, and the people behind me have sort of been these amazingly strong women, and that has given me the chance to be an amazing father.
Wicked. Hey, Dai, when we knew you were coming on, I discussed with Grace around your cancer diagnosis and whether it was relevant. And I'm about to read something, and because I think it's incredibly relevant to a lot of kids. But I'm just going to... So your advocacy and support of those struggling and or diagnosed with cancer has become iconic, obviously. You know, and even beyond cancer, my own daughter, as soon as she heard you were coming on, she said, he's the reason I meditate. Having read your book and delving, and that's right. It's so you touch more than those with cancer. And although Grace and I are supporting students, parents and teachers through difficult decisions around pathways after school, there is a hidden reality that exists. There's an elephant in the room for some. There's 150 kids diagnosed with cancer each year. That's 3 a week. During my time at Cambridge High School, we had a head boy who had testicular cancer, who had to deal with that. At any given time, 320 of our New Zealand children are undergoing treatment. Additionally, we have 56,000 in material hardship. 20% are in households that are scarce with food. That increases to 33% for Māori and 50% for Pacifica children. You're no stranger to those 3 young New Zealanders, and you mentioned that earlier, that are diagnosed this week, who will find that out And that's tragic for them, obviously, and their families and their schools who are trying to support them. For some New Zealand students, their daily lives mean their focus at school and their future is literally not on their radar, and it shouldn't be. Can I ask your reflection and advice for students and parents on what I'll call health? What do you do to maintain a healthy mind and body? How do you source self-belief and a sense of calm that my daughter stole off you in reference to your book to maintain her health as she studies hard? Any of that?
Yes. So my mantra to myself has always been, optimism won't cure me, but pessimism will kill me. So I've sort of tried, and it's desperately hard. And I think cancer is one thing, but as you mentioned, there is a whole myriad of things that are going on in society that are putting people in very hard positions to navigate, which I struggled to do for so long, was to not live in the future or the past, is to literally wake up. And this is what I do every day and go, I've got 24 hours ahead of me. How awesome's that? And just deal with that. Because as an adult who has skills that I've learned over many years, it is very hard to deal with something as heavy as cancer, let alone if you are still growing up, your brain's still growing, you're still trying to deal with what the hell are these emotions? Every emotion is huge and so forth. So I lived in my head for too long. If I could give any advice to kids, don't hide from your feelings. Feel your feelings. Don't create a story in your head around your feelings. For instance, I was your classic Kiwi male passive aggressive guy, right? I thought I was the funny guy, but I was passive aggressive. I'd get angry at taxi drivers. So I'd get out of the taxi and I'd leave the back door open. So then they had to walk all the way around. It's a horrendous thing to do, right? But since I've learned some skills, I've realized anger's not a bad emotion. It's just an emotion. It's a valid emotion. But don't build a story in your head about anger. Oh, Steve made me, what did Steve do that? Right, and you're creating this huge thing about Steve. Just feel the anger. Where is it? Feel it. For me, anger is here and it's like a hot ball. And I just feel it. I close my eyes and breathe. That sort of breathe in for 5 seconds, breathe out for 5 seconds, and focus on that ball, that hot ball. After about a minute and a half, it starts to dissipate. And get curious, where's it going? And then that is your body releasing the energy of the emotion, because emotions are energy. And if you're getting too much energy all trapped up inside you, that's going to come out in a very negative way. It's going to make you snap. You might be someone who's prone to fights. You might be then driven towards drugs and alcohol and trying to deal with these heavy emotions by suppressing them. All of those ways end badly. So sit with the emotion. But it's not easy. It's hard. It's bloody hard being a kid. I look back at a blessed childhood, but it was bloody hard. I had my traumas and my ups and downs. And if there are any kids who are watching this who are dealing with a cancer diagnosis, way before I had cancer, I used to go into Starship with a couple of mates. I've always loved Lego, and I did Lego Masters, and we'd get a few Lego sets together and rock into Starship. Some of the most beautiful people I've met have been kids who are going through very hard diagnosis and were in a very bad spot. Yet they had the most beautiful spirits because they were living for today, and we are living. It doesn't matter what your diagnosis is right now. You are living, and this is my thing. I am living with cancer. I don't look at it as counting time away. I'm living, and being in that state of living means, I'm excited when my kids get home. Let's shoot some basketball hoops. Not that I'm like that all the time. I am just watch a bit of iPad on and chill out for a second. You do what you want to do. But I like to be excited about life, and that would be my biggest tip would be feel your emotions. And that goes for parents as well. Because dealing myself with a cancer diagnosis, I cannot imagine what it would be like as a parent dealing with a child's diagnosis, not just cancer, a child's diagnosis that is so heavy, because you have so much love for your kids. So really feel those emotions. Don't be shy to cry. I'd like to see more guys cry, more boys cry, because crying is an epic way of getting out trauma, getting out these emotions and feelings, and do it by yourself. Go and have an ugly cry in your bedroom or whatever. It's okay. Don't be ashamed to cry, especially to the boys out there, and be a little bit optimistic. You know, we catastrophize about things, right? What's wrong with going, hey, what if it all works out? I'm not saying it's going to all work out, but if you're going to catastrophize about it, you may as well think it's going to all work out as well.
Because there was something there you said, Dai, because I know you've often said before, you're quite thankful your father hasn't had to see you go through.
Yeah.
And so that's a thank, because equally you wouldn't like to see your own children, not that you wouldn't want to be there to support them, of course. Do you have a sense of responsibility with the fame you have? Do you, or are you going to, you said you went to Starship prior to even, but your cancer diagnosis, is that something to do with you understand your, like being an All Black? I go back to Cam Roigard. Is that something you feel?
It's, so I've been blessed to become sort of famous in New Zealand in a positive way, right? Like, I'm not a controversial figure. I just want to bring happiness and laughs to people. So that's cool, because it means when I'm out with my kids and people come up, it's generally positive, like it's, hey, and also I'm a very approachable person. So people come up and chat. I love chatting to new people, but this is why it took me 2 years to go public with my diagnosis, because I didn't know if I was qualified to help people, or if qualified to help people. And then I'd spent 2 years going on stage, running through the motions, because I wasn't being authentic. Not that I wanted to do lots of jokes about cancer or anything, but I wasn't being authentic. And then I actually suddenly went, I am qualified, because I've been living with stage 4 cancer for 2 years. I've been going through surgeries, treatments. And then I went, actually, I just want to share my story, and I want to help people. I'm not trying to sell a supplement. I don't have a story. I don't have yet, fingers crossed, I don't have a fairy tale story, where it's, so for me, it's just about sharing my story. And I get, just before we came on, I got a message from another patient who I haven't met yet, who's down in Christchurch, who I just text with here and there. a lot of people have reached out, and it's just creating a little community. So I don't feel pressure to be a role model. I am just confident in my own moral compass. I'm confident in who I am, and if what I share helps people, that is just the icing on the cake.
Yeah. Yeah, and you may have already answered this, I don't know, but if I was to force you, I was going to give you, actually, you could have 2 or 3 things. I'm not, because I think you deserve some pressure. What are you most proud of? I mean, we've talked a lot here. We've talked about your family. We've talked about your career. We've talked about your cancer and your support of people. What would you sit back and go, actually, the thing I'm most proud of is?
The thing I'm most proud of is the person I've grown into as a husband and a father. I have, that has been the most challenging time in my life, not so much the husband side of it, but being a father, because children in those young years bring every emotion out in you, and every emotion to its peak. Happiness to its peak, sleep deprivation to its peak, anger to its peak. And the fact that I have navigated that alongside my wife, the fact that my wife and I, after 5 years of a cancer diagnosis, are tighter, and there's some pretty depressing stats out there of divorce rates with serious illness. And the fact that I have been willing to learn and evolve as a human to become a really good husband and a really good father. And there's awards, there's comedy, there's all that. But at the end of the day, what really matters is who you are as a person, and how you carry yourself on this beautiful earth. And the fact that I look back and go, I think I'm a more evolved, better person than I was 10 years ago, that to me is the biggest thing to be proud of.
Wicked. Can I ask, Dai, before I just sum up shortly, what are you? Are you a comedian? Are you a TV personality? What do you classify? Maybe it's on your tax return. I don't know. What the hell are you?
Well, this is the beautiful thing about being in New Zealand, right? Is if you live in a country like America that's got so many people in it, you could just be a stand-up comic who does universities, and you could earn between 200 and 300K a year doing that. Live a happy life, right? And that's all you do. But in New Zealand, there ain't that money there. So you've got to do everything, voiceovers, corporate gigs, written a book, TV. I still write comedian. Like, where we just went over to see some family in Sydney and go to the grand final over there, and I still write comedian on the on your entry form. So I think that's because when I go back to being 12 years old, I'm watching Robin Williams on a VHS tape. He was a stand-up comic who was a big influence of mine. The fact that I can truthfully write comedian on a legal document as my job is something that brings so much happiness to me.
Yeah, I bet. It's funny though too, because you sort of mentioned the money side of it, and you got to sort of do what you can do. But here you are sitting with us, so I'm sure. Let's just say this is the only podcast we've ever done and make us feel good. But
actually, just on that to kids, I know money is so important, right? The cost of living is so important, but don't overweight money, because don't confuse your personal worth with the worth that's in your bank account, because they're two very, very separate things. And you are priceless. You're a priceless human being, and it doesn't matter whether you've got a buck in your bank account or whether you just won lotto. So I think it's because I think back, some of the craziest and happiest times I've had in my life were probably when I was the most broke, and I didn't know, when I'm on the 2-minute noodles, didn't know where next week's paycheck was coming from. But I sort of stumbled through that. So I think you have to be very careful not to confuse your personal worth with the money in your bank account.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, Dai, when your manager, this is a personal thing, when your manager says, oh, look, these clowns over here want to interview you, what processes do you go through? Because you must get this all the time. Was it just something that resonated with you, or how does it work?
Well, I like, as I say, I'm a personable chat. What you guys are doing is awesome. The fact that, as I was mentioning, if I can share my story, my any insights I've found along the way, and that helps one kid, one parent, one person who's watches this, that's all that matters. So I sort of evaluate things and go, yeah, I've got some time there, and I'd like to do that, and I get stuff out of it too. It makes me feel good, meeting some new people, having a chat, and often talking consolidates the way you feel about things as well, because often you have everything swirling around inside of you, and it's not until you actually got to say it as a sentence you realize what you mean. So no, I even though I've got rid of my people-pleasing tendencies, I still like to say yes to things.
Yeah. Look, before Grace wraps up with some curly ones at the end, I just want to obviously extend my thanks to you, because and hearing your story about Victoria and Wellington High School and your relationship with your parents and dad being the actor, it's been really cool to piece that together for kids. And particularly that pathway, because like I say, I've met some bloody funny kids. They're a nightmare to teach. But it's really good that every kid should see somewhere they can go. And I'm glad you've hit on maybe those, what we call those core values, that, maybe it's more important they shake someone's hand and look them in the eye. They have good role models in their life. And I think what you're doing is wonderful, because I mentioned earlier about your popularity. And whether it was something you set out to do, but it is the way you conduct yourself. I mean, I think you are a role model, not for comedians, as a man, and as a father, which I go back to when I started this, and I said, when I said Dai Henwood was on our show, God help me, that brought joy to it was incredible. That just that one announcement could have people going, oh my God, it's Dai Henwood, which really cool, really special. And
also, I'll just jump in. There's something that I was thinking about, that if you don't fit in at school, you struggle with school. A lot of people dealing with ADHD, autism, or so forth. There's paths for you. Like come to comedy. If on most comedic doodles I'm on, there are people who are open with their autism, ADHD, where it's a superpower. It ain't holding you back where it might struggle in a classroom situation. It's a bloody superpower when they're on stage. So that's the thing. What parts of society might think of as a hindrance is actually a superpower. So never write yourself off.
Gracie.
Dai, we have a sign off, but I mean, it's been a pleasure listening to you both talk, and I'm thinking, like, often we have a radiographer or we have an All Black and we say this is their title, and I love that you asked at Ludlam, and you'll say comedian on your card, But the actual thing is, it's just being a good person, being a really nice person, making people laugh. And we're not going to remember all the tidbits of the things we did, but I love that whoever's listening, parent, kid, whatever. And it's also, I'm going to butcher it. So there's this thing I came across with the careers of, if you know what you want to be, the curse is that you'll become it. Whereas if you don't know, you'll have fun figuring it out. That's what I love with you, is you go, comedian, what does that look like? So you're going to have fun figuring out what that looks like. And there's going to be people listening who go, I don't know what I want to do. And instead of thinking that's a scary thing, go, nah, that's where the fun lies, because you'll figure out what you don't want to do through the process of elimination. And you have a lot of fun on that path. And I mean, I personally resonate with that. So just want to echo that for people listening. Thank you for that part.
Oh, and also, you when you said, you often don't remember all the little tidbits and that, this is another thing that something that I realized is that people don't actually remember what you say. They remember how you make them feel.
Yeah.
So bringing a good vibe is so much of life. It's like if you're in a job interview, who was that really, that guy had that good vibe? They remember that. They don't remember the exact things you say. And that's like, a lot of people come watch me do comedy, and I might see them in a couple of days and they go, I can't remember any of your jokes, but you're so funny. And that's the thing, because you watch a show, you might remember a one-liner or something, but you don't remember it all, but you remember the vibe.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, quick shout out to the Waz. I don't know how the Waz are doing, but I know it's up the Waz. Like, yeah. I really don't know much else. The sign-off question, Dai, we ask everyone, because you've given a lot of advice to everyone, but if it was die to die back in form 6 or 7, you're 16, 17, 18, what advice would you be giving yourself directly?
You are enough, is what I would say to myself. You are enough, because I think I went through a huge portion of my life wondering whether I was cool enough, whether I was good enough, whether was I enough to be a comedian, and just realizing that you are enough. And that's to anyone who's listening, any kid who's listening, you are enough. It doesn't, if you love rugby, but you might not be an All Black, that's okay. You're enough. Just enjoy playing some rugby. And I wish I had honestly known that in my heart when I was about 17 or 18, because it's taken me into my 40s to realize that I'm enough.
Place to finish, Dai. Mate, you've been an absolute pleasure, and I just think kids around the country and teachers and parents are going to just love what you've had to say. And thank you for going to the depth of what you've said, because I said earlier, it's not what you are, but how you did it and why. And I think you've nailed it. It was just a pleasure. I hope one day you come to the Coromandel and we can go for a surf, maybe, if since you love your piha. And
where I end up for a week in January each year in Matarangi.
Mate, I'm going to show you. I've had Matarangi pumping about a month ago. Yeah.
Because and then I went down towards the end of summer, and with the right swell and wind, it gets a nice little wave.
Oh, mate, no.
Then round to Luke's Kitchen in Kuatunis for a few.
Oh, wicked.
Oh, yeah, so Grace, I'm a bit worried that you're in Cambridge and you've got a bike on your wall, not a like canoe or something.
Well, that's actually funny. I'm in Amsterdam, hence why it's dark, but that's why there's...
Oh, I thought you meant Cambridge and...
I know, I'm a Cambridge gal. I'm in Amsterdam. But that's why, no matter where I position this camera, there's a bike in the background. But trust me, if it was Cambridge, it would probably be...
Not Cambridge, but Amsterdam's a bit cooler.
Wicked. And I think it's about, what time is it there, Grace?
Yeah, it's like 1 a.m. That's...
Oh, wow.
Dai,
Yeah, anything for you, Di.
literally. This has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been lovely chatting. Take care all. Have a good sleep, Grace, and lovely to meet you, babe.